Violins played. Underneath, a whisper said, "Don't let her know." Have you ever wondered what your loyal companion hears that you cannot? What secrets float through the air, invisible to human ears, but crystal clear to those who truly listen? Today, I'm going to tell you about the day music tried to hide the truth, but my ears caught every lie. This is the story of a wedding where melodies masked malice, and where my harness became the weapon that saved my human from humiliation. Stay with me, because what happened under those violins will make you question every celebration you've ever attended. My name is Max, and I'm a 3-year-old golden retriever guide dog. My world revolves around Sarah Mitchell, a 28-year-old woman whose eyes may not see, but whose heart sees more than most. We've been partners for 2 years now, moving through life as one synchronized unit, her hand resting gently on my harness handle, trusting me with every step she takes. That Saturday morning in late September felt different from the moment we woke up. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she brushed my fur, her voice carrying an excitement I rarely heard. "Max, today we're going to Cousin Jennifer's wedding," she whispered, running her fingers through my golden coat. "It's been so long since I've seen everyone. I hope they'll be happy to see us." I pressed my nose against her palm, sensing something beneath her excitement. Anxiety? Fear? I couldn't name it then, but my instincts were already whispering warnings. The car ride to St. Catherine's Church stretched for nearly an hour. Sarah sat in the back of the rideshare, her fingers absently playing with my ears, as she always did when nervous. Through the open window, I caught scents of autumn, dying leaves mixing with distant rain. The driver, a middle-aged man named Tom, made small talk about the weather and traffic, but Sarah's responses were brief, distracted. When we finally arrived, the church stood magnificent before us, a towering structure of white stone and stained glass that seemed to touch the clouds. The parking lot buzzed with activity, car doors slamming, heels clicking on pavement, children's laughter mixing with adult conversations. I guided Sarah carefully through the crowd, my body tense and alert, navigating around clusters of guests in their finest clothes. Women in flowing dresses of pastels and jewel tones, men in dark suits and ties, all moving toward the church entrance like a river of silk and cologne. As we approached the massive wooden doors, I felt Sarah's grip tighten on my harness. A woman's voice called out, sharp and artificially sweet, "Sarah, oh my God, Sarah Mitchell, I can't believe you actually came." I turned my head to see a tall woman in an emerald green dress striding toward us, her heels stabbing the ground with each step. Her perfume hit my nose like a wall, overwhelming and chemical. This was Diane, Sarah's aunt, a woman whose smile never quite reached her eyes. "Aunt Diane," Sarah responded, her voice carefully neutral. "Of course I came. Jennifer's my cousin." Diane's eyes slid down to me, her lips curling slightly. "And you brought your dog." The pause before dog carried weight, disdain wrapped in politeness. My muscles tensed instinctively. I've learned to read people not through their words, but through their tone, their breath, the subtle shifts in their posture. Diane radiated something cold, something that made the fur on my neck want to rise. "Max is my guide dog, Aunt Diane. He goes everywhere with me." Sarah's voice remained steady, but I felt her fingers tremble against my harness. Of course," Diane said quickly, though her smile looked painted on. "Well, come inside. The ceremony starts in 20 minutes. Your mother is already seated." She gestured toward the entrance, then turned and walked away without waiting, her dress swishing behind her like a green serpent. Inside, the church was breathtaking, even to my canine perception. Light streamed through stained glass windows, painting the pews in blues, reds, and golds. The air was thick with lily perfume and the musty scent of old wood and hymn books. An organist practiced somewhere above, filling the space with deep, resonant notes that vibrated through my chest. Sarah's mother, Margaret, waved from a pew near the middle. As we approached, I noticed other family members turning to stare, some smiling genuinely, others with expressions I couldn't quite decode. Whispers followed us like shadows. I guided Sarah to the pew, and she slid in beside her mother, who immediately embraced her. "Oh, sweetheart, you look beautiful," Margaret said, her voice warm and real, so different from Diane's artificial sweetness. "That blue dress is perfect on you." As they talked, I settled at Sarah's feet, my body a warm anchor in this sea of strangers. But even as I lay there, my ears were working, scanning the acoustic landscape of the church. Conversations bloomed and faded around us, fragments of gossip about the bride's dress, speculation about the honeymoon, complaints about the heat. And underneath it all, barely perceptible, I caught something else. A whisper, a name, Sarah's name. My ears swiveled toward the sound, trying to locate its source, but the organ swelled again, drowning everything in its majestic roar. The ceremony began with a crescendo of strings. A quartet of violinists stood near the altar, their bows dancing across instruments that sang with an elegance that even I, a dog, could appreciate. The notes floated through the air like ribbons of sound, weaving between the columns and arches, filling every corner of the sacred space. The guests fell silent, heads turning toward the back of the church where the bride would soon appear. Sarah sat perfectly still beside her mother, her hands folded in her lap, her face serene. But I felt the tension in her body, the slight rigidity in her spine. She was performing calmness, wearing it like armor. The bride, Jennifer, appeared in the doorway, a vision in white lace and silk. Gasps rippled through the congregation, followed by the rustling of fabric as everyone rose to their feet. Sarah stood too, guided by her mother's gentle touch, and I rose with her, my body pressed against her leg. The violins swelled into the wedding march, and Jennifer began her slow procession down the aisle, her father's arm linked through hers. As they passed our pew, I caught Jennifer's scent, nervous sweat beneath expensive perfume, and saw her eyes flick briefly to Sarah before quickly looking away. Something about that glance bothered me, but I couldn't name why. The ceremony proceeded with all the expected rituals. The priest spoke in measured tones about love and commitment, his words echoing off the vaulted ceiling. The couple exchanged vows, their voices trembling with emotion. Rings were blessed and placed on fingers. It should have been a moment of pure joy, and for many in attendance, it was. But my ears, always working, always scanning, caught fragments of something darker weaving through the beauty. During a particularly loud swell of violin music, I heard it clearly for the first time. 3 pews behind us, slightly to the left, a man's voice, low and careful, speaking to someone beside him. "Tonight at the reception," he whispered, the words barely audible beneath the strings. During her speech, "That's when we do it," a woman responded, her voice even quieter. "Are you sure? What if someone notices?" "Nobody will notice," the man replied, and I heard the cruel smile in his voice. "Everyone will be watching Sarah make a fool of herself. It'll be perfect." My entire body went rigid. Sarah. They were talking about Sarah. I wanted to bark, to alert her, to somehow communicate the danger I was sensing. But I was trained better than that. Guide dogs don't bark in public spaces. We don't draw attention. We remain calm and focused regardless of circumstances. But every instinct in my body screamed that something was wrong. I shifted slightly, pressing more firmly against Sarah's leg, trying to convey through physical contact what I couldn't express in words. She reached down absently, her fingers finding my head, stroking my fur in a gesture meant to comfort me but which only increased my agitation. The ceremony continued, oblivious to the conspiracy unfolding in whispers beneath its sacred words. When the priest finally pronounced the couple husband and wife, the church erupted in applause. The violins launched into a joyful recessional as Jennifer and her new husband walked back down the aisle, beaming at their guests. Sarah clapped along with everyone else, her face bright with genuine happiness for her cousin. She had no idea that somewhere in this celebration, people were plotting against her. As the crowd began to file out of the church, moving toward the reception hall adjacent to the building, I kept my senses on high alert. My ears swiveled constantly, trying to catch more fragments of conversation, trying to identify the voices I'd heard. The man had sounded middle-aged, his accent suggesting he'd grown up somewhere in the northeast. The woman was younger, her voice tight with nervousness. But in this crowd of hundreds, finding them again seemed impossible. The reception hall loomed ahead, decorated with white flowers and twinkling lights, and I knew that whatever they had planned, it would happen there, tonight, during a speech, Sarah's speech. My harness suddenly felt heavier, more significant. So I didn't know it yet, but this device designed to guide my human safely through the world was about to become something else entirely. A witness, a recorder, a weapon of truth. The reception hall transformed the church's solemnity into celebration. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over round tables draped in ivory cloth, each centerpiece an explosion of roses and hydrangeas. A live band set up in the corner, their instruments gleaming under spotlights. Waiters circulated with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres, their movements practiced and graceful. Sarah and I were guided to table 7, where her mother and several other relatives had already gathered. The conversations around us bubbled with energy. People catching up after months or years apart, complimenting the decor, predicting how long the marriage would last. I lay beneath Sarah's chair, my body coiled tight despite the festive atmosphere, my ears working overtime to filter through the cacophony of sound. Then I heard them again. The same voices from the church, now closer, perhaps 2 tables away. The music was softer here, a gentle jazz melody that provided cover but not complete concealment. "Did you get the microphone ready?" the woman asked, her voice still trembling with nerves. "It's all set," the man confirmed. "When they call her up for the toast, it'll cut out halfway through. She'll be standing there in front of everyone, unable to finish, looking completely incompetent. And the video..." He paused, and I heard the sharp intake of breath that comes before laughter. "The video we prepared will play instead. Everyone will see exactly what we think of blind people trying to act normal at family events." My blood ran cold. This wasn't just casual cruelty. This was calculated, planned, designed to maximize Sarah's humiliation in front of her entire family. The woman spoke again, quieter now. "What if someone figures out we sabotaged it?" "Nobody will," the man assured her. "They'll just think it's technical difficulties. And even if they suspect something, so what? The damage will be done. Sarah will be too embarrassed to ever show her face at another family gathering." I had to do something, but what? I couldn't speak, couldn't alert Sarah to the danger she was walking into. My training had prepared me for physical obstacles, not human malice. Then I felt it, the slight vibration against my back, my harness. Sarah's harness wasn't just a guiding tool. It was equipped with a small recording device, something her previous guide dog trainer had installed after an incident where Sarah needed evidence of discrimination at a store. The device was voice-activated, designed to capture conversations when Sarah needed documentation. It had been recording since we entered the reception hall. Every word of their conspiracy was being stored in the small digital recorder hidden in the leather strap. I didn't know how I would make Sarah listen to it, but at least the evidence existed. At least their words were captured, preserved, waiting for the right moment to emerge. The dinner service began, plates of salmon and roasted vegetables appearing before the guests. Sarah ate carefully, her fork finding food with practiced precision, completely unaware that somewhere in this beautiful room, people were counting down the minutes until her public destruction. I watched the band, the guests, the shadows moving along the walls, and I waited, because I knew something the conspirators didn't. I knew that truth once recorded doesn't stay hidden forever. Dessert arrived as the sun began to set outside the tall windows, casting the reception hall in shades of amber and gold. The band transitioned to slower melodies, and some couples drifted to the dance floor, swaying gently to the music. Sarah's mother excused herself to speak with old friends, leaving Sarah alone at the table, her fingers tracing patterns on the tablecloth. I remained vigilant beneath her chair, my senses stretched to their limit. The conspirators had gone quiet, but I could smell them nearby, the man's cologne mixing with the woman's floral perfume, creating a signature scent I would never forget. The best man stood and tapped his glass with a fork, the sharp ringing silencing the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice booming through the speakers, "it's time for some toasts to the happy couple." Applause rippled through the room. He gave his speech first, full of jokes about the groom's bachelor days and sentimental memories of their friendship. Laughter echoed off the walls. Then came the maid of honor, Jennifer's younger sister, who spoke tearfully about sisterhood and love. More applause, more clinking glasses. Then the moment I had been dreading arrived. Jennifer herself stood, microphone in hand, her white dress shimmering under the lights. "Before we continue," she said, her voice slightly slurred from champagne, "I want to invite my cousin Sarah Mitchell to say a few words. Sarah, would you come up here, please?" The request caught everyone off guard. Sarah's hand flew to her chest, her face flushing with surprise. This wasn't planned, she hadn't prepared anything. Around us I heard murmurs of confusion, but also something else. Anticipation, excitement. Were there others in on this conspiracy? How many people knew what was about to happen? Sarah's mother reappeared suddenly, her hand on Sarah's shoulder. "You don't have to, sweetheart," she whispered urgently. But Sarah was already standing, her pride overriding her anxiety. "It's okay, Mom, I can do this." She reached for my harness, and I stood immediately, guiding her toward the small stage where the band had been playing. Every eye in the room followed us. I could feel their stares like physical weight, some curious, some pitying, some gleeful. As we approached the stage, I saw him, the conspirator, He stood near the sound equipment, his hand resting casually on a control panel, his face arranged in false concern. He was younger than I'd imagined from his voice, maybe 35, wearing an expensive grey suit. His eyes met mine for just a second, and in that moment I saw his confidence, his certainty that his plan was about to unfold perfectly. Beside him stood the woman, Diane, Sarah's aunt, the same woman who had greeted us outside the church with that cold, artificial smile. Of course it was her. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. This wasn't random cruelty. This was family betrayal. Sarah took the microphone with trembling hands, her face pale under the stage lights. The room fell into expectant silence, broken only by the soft clink of glasses and the rustle of fabric as people shifted in their seats. I positioned myself beside her, my body pressed against her leg, offering what comfort I could. She cleared her throat, and when she spoke, her voice wavered slightly. "Thank you, Jennifer, for inviting me to speak. I wasn't expecting this, so please forgive me if I ramble a bit." Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. She continued, speaking from her heart about childhood memories with Jennifer, about summer vacations and shared secrets, about the bond between cousins that transcends distance and time. Her words were genuine, beautiful even, flowing with an honesty that comes from speaking without preparation. The guests listened, some smiling, others dabbing at their eyes. For a moment, I almost forgot about the conspiracy. Almost. Then it happened. Halfway through a sentence about Jennifer's kindness, the microphone emitted a sharp screech of feedback, then went completely dead. Sarah froze, her mouth still moving but no sound emerging. Confusion flashed across her face. She tapped the microphone, heard nothing, and a flush of embarrassment crept up her neck. The silence stretched, becoming uncomfortable, painful. People began to whisper. Some shifted awkwardly, others exchanged glances. This was the moment Diane and her accomplice had been waiting for. I saw Diane's face in the crowd, her expression twisted with barely concealed satisfaction. Her companion at the sound booth pressed another button, and suddenly the large screen behind the stage flickered to life. A video began to play, but it wasn't what they had planned. The screen showed nothing, no humiliating footage. Instead, there was only audio, my harness recorder. Somehow in the chaos of the microphone failure, someone had connected my recording device to the sound system. Perhaps it was Sarah's mother, who I now noticed standing near the equipment, her phone in hand, her face set in determined fury. Perhaps it was divine intervention, perhaps it was simply luck, but the result was the same. Diane's voice filled the reception hall, crystal clear and undeniable. During her speech, "That's when we do it." The room went deathly silent, every head turned, searching for the source of the voice. The recording continued, playing every word of their conspiracy. The sabotaged microphone, the planned humiliation, the cruel comments about blind people. Each sentence landed like a bomb, exploding the festive atmosphere into shock and horror. I watched Diane's face drain of color, watched her companion at the sound booth frantically try to stop the playback, but it was too late. The truth was out, hanging in the air like smoke, impossible to ignore or deny. Sarah stood frozen on stage, still holding the dead microphone, not understanding what was happening but sensing the shift in energy, the collective gasp of the crowd. And in that moment, I knew, music hides lies, but I hear whispers, and now everyone else heard them too. The recording ended, and for 3 heartbeats, nobody moved. Then chaos erupted. Voices exploded across the reception hall, some shouting in anger, others in disbelief. Jennifer stood from her seat at the head table, her face contorted with fury. "Aunt Diane, what the hell is this?" she screamed, her wedding day shattered by betrayal. Diane tried to speak, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air, but no explanation could undo what everyone had just heard. Her accomplice, a distant uncle named Richard, attempted to slip toward the exit, but several groomsmen blocked his path, their expressions dark with protective rage. Sarah's mother rushed to the stage, wrapping her arms around her daughter, guiding her down and away from the spectacle. I followed close behind, my body a shield against the churning crowd. Sarah was crying now, not from humiliation but from shock, her hands clutching her mother's arm. "What happened?" she kept asking. "Mum, what was that recording? Was that Aunt Diane?" Margaret's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. "Yes, sweetheart, that was Diane. She tried to hurt you, but she failed. Max's harness recorded everything, and now everyone knows the truth." Sarah's hand found my head, her fingers tangling in my fur, and I felt her body shake with emotion. Relief, gratitude, disbelief that someone she loved could harbor such cruelty. Jennifer approached us, still in her wedding dress, tears streaming down her carefully made-up face. "Sarah, I had no idea. I swear I didn't know she was planning this. I would never ever hurt you like that." Sarah reached out, and the cousins embraced, both crying while the hall continued to buzz with scandal. Security was called. Diane and Richard were escorted out, their protests falling on deaf ears. Some family members followed them, shouting accusations, demanding explanations that would never satisfy. The wedding that should have been a celebration of love became a reckoning, exposing the rot that had been hiding beneath the surface of familial politeness. As the night wound down, much earlier than planned, Sarah and I sat outside on a stone bench in the church garden. The air was cool, carrying the scent of roses and evening dew. She stroked my fur slowly, rhythmically, her breathing finally calm. "You saved me, Max," she whispered. "You heard what I couldn't hear. You protected me when I didn't even know I needed protection." I pressed my nose against her hand, a gesture that meant everything I couldn't say in words. "This is what we do. This is why we exist. Not just to guide you through physical spaces, but to be your eyes, your ears, your guardian in a world that isn't always kind." The moon rose over the church steeple, casting silver light across the garden. Tomorrow, this would be a story Sarah told, a scandal the family would discuss for years. But tonight, in this quiet moment, it was simply a girl and her dog, a bond stronger than blood, a loyalty deeper than any conspiracy could break. Music hides lies, but I hear whispers, and I will always, always protect my human from those who speak them. Subscribe to uncover the next secret, because in this world of hidden malice, someone needs to be listening, and that someone is me.